All right, welcome back to SEO for web developers. This is section 3, and in this section, I'm going to talk about setting up a SEO plugin for WordPress. If you're not using WordPress, you can definitely do all of these steps manually, and you can implement them using any framework or technology. One of the benefits of using WordPress for SEO, in my opinion, is enabling and using some of these tools that will, expedite your SEO efforts and also automate a lot of things that you would have to do manually without the use of a plugin. So, having an SEO plugin for WordPress isn't going to guarantee that you're going to be on top of Google as soon as you install and configure it by any means. However, it will help when you're creating content, when you're creating pages, and some general, good SEO practices will be automated by using an SEO plugin. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. It's probably for SEOs, most SEOs are going to use, if they're using WordPress, they're going to use a plugin in addition to some other tools. So I highly recommend it. If you are looking to automate some of these tasks and make your job easier, I would say use a plugin for WordPress and set it up correctly and use it to your advantage. Again, this doesn't guarantee results, but it's a good tool to have that can make your job a little bit easier. So if you are using WordPress, great, follow this along. If you're not using WordPress, I'll kind of explain some of the main features of these tools, and you can certainly, look on your own and do some research on how you can implement these in any other framework that you're using. A lot of JavaScript frameworks have some of this functionality as packages. So, for example, I showed earlier a sitemap setting and creating a dynamic sitemap. There are libraries in React or TypeScript or whatever other JavaScript framework you're using in order to generate those dynamically as well. If you're using another CMS, for example, as well. So there are ways to implement some of these features, some of this functionality without using WordPress. However, for SEO, if you are interested in SEO, I still think WordPress is probably the best way to go. And it will give you the most bang for your buck if you're trying to learn SEO and if you're trying to implement SEO. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to go into your WordPress backend. You want to go add new here under plugins, and then you want to either search for Yoast is a really good plugin for SEO. It's very popular. It's more popular than Rank Math, which I use, or you can install Rank Math, which is another very popular plugin for WordPress. You see it has over 1 million installs, great reviews, and I already have it installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go, I won't update it right now. I'll just go through the setup wizard. So this is what you would see if you were setting up your site. If you install this plugin, it'll go through the setup wizard initially. So I'm going to take you through some of these options, and I'm going to explain why they're important, which ones are important, which ones you need to worry about, and then also you can decide whether or not which of these you want to enable and which ones make sense in your scenario. And I'll also talk about how you could potentially implement these manually as well if you're not using WordPress. So I'm going to go on advanced through the wizard. Here's where you can set up and add some more information about your personal website. So you can describe your business, you can put in a logo, you can put in a social share image, and you can save all those settings. So what will happen here is this plugin will create a schema behind the scenes. Schema is a JavaScript description of your website and certain functionality of your website. It helps the search engines understand your website better. And it's a very good practice to implement schemas when you can, if they make sense for your pages and your websites, because it helps Google understand what your website is about. And it also helps you, in some cases, land what's called a rich snippet. So if you've seen those on Google, if you're searching for something and then you see like those top questions, for example, that's called a rich snippet. If you have an FAQ schema, what's called an FAQ schema, you could land on top page of Google, for example, for that particular question and answer, and you can get some traffic that way. So that's an example of a schema. So you want to set this up. This will automate, again, things so you don't have to do this manually. You certainly can implement any schema manually as well on your website. You don't need WordPress, you don't need a plugin, but this just helps you speed things up. The other thing that's really useful is a default social share image. So if you forget to specify a meta description, for example, and an image that you want to share for your social shares, you could set up a default here so that it automatically, if you're sharing your link to your website, for example, on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, this social share image will show up automatically if you forget to add one in your page or your post on your website. So again, another useful feature that you can add. It doesn't hurt, and we'll click and save next. If you remember, also I mentioned I'll show you a way to connect your services easier as well. Some of these plugins also have the ability to connect to your analytics, Google Analytics and Search Console. Remember I showed you earlier how to select how to add a domain to Google Search Console, and then you can, you get that code snippet and then you add it to your domain. You can, with the use of a plugin, you can actually automate all that and just do it in a plugin. You just log into your Google account through here and you say, this is the property I want to map. And you say enable, this linkage basically between these tools and your website. Again, another kind of benefit of these plugins is you can do this without knowing a lot of code if you don't know code, and you can set this up quite easily without having to add any extra code on your website manually if you don't know how to do that. So it's a great way to, link things. You don't have to do this. I usually do it the manual way, but you can certainly connect your services here as well and do it that way. Another handy thing, I have the pro version, so you might not be able to see some of these options here for Rank Math, although I did turn off the pro version just for my demo. It looks like some of the settings are still picking up. So, for example, these email reports, so you can send you a weekly report about how you're doing, how your SEO is going for your website weekly. So you can enable that as well if you like. Another important feature is a sitemap. These are dynamic sitemaps. So basically what happens, and one of the awesome things about WordPress is if you create a dynamic sitemap, anytime you create a new page or you delete a page or you rename a page or whatever, it'll automatically update your sitemap, which is great. Again, there are JavaScript libraries for that as well if you're not using WordPress, but WordPress comes with that out of the box. Also, the SEO plugins create the sitemap for you to do a little bit of a better job, in my opinion. The SEO plugins do than out of the box WordPress. There's more configuration options and things like that. So this is a must. I would enable it. And again, I would add this to your Google Search Console as well. There's some additional SEO tweaks, as they call them here, some additional options that you can enable. So for example, if you have tag archives, or if you have categories, for example, it can, category pages, it can add those as well to your sitemap, or it can disable them. Here, it'll say just like no index. Basically what I'm saying here is if I do have tag archives and they're empty, don't add them to the, don't add a dead end to this sitemap. Because just set them to no index so that robots don't follow them and get confused. You can also set all of your no follow links to no follow. I don't usually recommend doing this because for good SEO practices and just being a good internet citizen, having follow links and attributing, some authority to the sites that you're linking to is considered good practice. So I would usually leave this off. And then last but not least on this screen is you can also set it so that any external hyperlinks that you add in your page or post, it'll automatically open it up in a new tab. So you don't have to add manually target blank. It'll just do that automatically for all external links, which is good practice. And I think, enabling this doesn't hurt. It actually helps if you do forget to add that to your code or enable that setting. So it's optional again, but I recommend turning that on so people don't navigate away from your site if you forget to do it. Again, you could do this manually. I don't know if there's a JavaScript thing outside of WordPress that you can enable, to do this automatically. I'm sure there is, but again, another thing you can automate with these tools in WordPress that make your job a little bit easier. And that's it. So once you finish that, you can go to advanced options as well. Remember, I turned on advanced, the advanced wizard when I started. This thing is useful. So the next thing is there's the role manager. So you can set different roles to administer and manage the options for rank math. I usually turn this off just because I only have me and somebody else actually managing my site. And we're both administrators, so I don't need to worry about this. But you could set, for example, what a WordPress editor can do versus what an administrator can do versus what an author can do. These are default WordPress roles, so you can set what different access levels can manage within the SEO tool. So like I said, I don't need this, so I'm just going to turn it off. And I'm going to go to the next screen, which is the 404 monitor. Again, another super useful feature of these plugins. Actually, this particular one, and this is part of the reason why I use Rank Math, is this is actually in the free version of Rank Math. In Yoast, you would have to buy the premium version in order to have this option. So 404 monitor will tell you if somebody's visiting your site and there's a broken page that they can't navigate to. So that would generate a 404 error. And that's not a good practice for SEO. So you want to fix those as soon as possible. This enables you to see if there are any 404 errors that you're not catching. It'll monitor and record them, and then you can go into the 404 monitor every once in a while and see if you have any broken links that you can fix. Redirections are also great. Redirections are basically if you do rename a page, or if you do want to delete a page and point that traffic to another page, you can do that with redirections. You can just say, I'm redirecting this hyperlink to another hyperlink. You could, of course, again, do this manually in your htaccess file. But again, with these plugins, this can even be automated. So actually with redirections on this particular site, it not only enables you to be able to create redirections, but it'll also pick up if you do rename a page and you forget to add a redirection, it'll actually do it automatically for you. So it's a great feature as well of Rank Math. And last but not least, sitemaps. So if you remember, schemas, not sitemaps. Schemas are basically metadata that describes your website in JavaScript, JSON format. And it's a great feature to help you help search engines really and understand what your content is about. So it describes your website to a search engine bot, and it allows you to pick up some rich results in some cases, and it can help you with SEO. It's not guaranteed again, but anything you can do to help search engines understand better what your website is about is a great SEO practice, and you should definitely do it. With these plugins, again, you can automate this. So a schema markup would automatically get generated if you turn this on, And the schema markup would be generated for example, for all blog posts and pages. It's going to create an article schema with the blog post type, for example, to let the to let Google know that this is what this website is about and this is the author and things like that. Schemas are very important. I'm going to go through it in another module. They're important for technical SEO. If you want to learn SEO, you definitely have to know a little bit more about schemas. It's a great feature to add to your websites if you don't have them. I'll go through them in a little bit more detail in another module again, but you know, enable this. This basically automates creating schemas both for pages and for posts. So it's a great feature that gets added on automatically for every new content piece that you create. And so, yeah, so it's an awesome feature, and I recommend doing this. Again, you could do these manually. You could create schemas manually and add that JSON code to your website using any website framework, or even if you're just using HTML, CSS, you could add it manually. But again, these plugins will do that automatically, so you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it manually. So it's a great little feature. We'll go save and continue, and that's basically it. Rank math will now show up in our tab here. You'll see all of these different options here. I'm not going to go through all of them. That could be a whole course on its own, but I definitely urge you to explore this a little bit more and to learn how to use this tool effectively. As I go through some of the future modules, I'm also going to use this plugin in order to help me, for example, create content and identify any issues when I'm creating content in order for us to really hone in on optimizing our content for SEO. So I am going to use this plugin quite a bit as I go through the course. So, you know, one of the main steps you want to do when you're setting up a new project, especially if you're doing using WordPress, is install an SEO plugin. It'll help your efforts quite a bit. Again, it doesn't guarantee results. You don't have to use one, but I think it helps, especially for beginners, so you can kind of start understanding some of those concepts within SEO and the technical SEO practice. So yeah, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can definitely take a look. I kind of went through all of the main things that we want to tackle, which is basically, you know, creating a sitemap, creating schemas, watching out for 404s, and creating redirections. And generally, when you're creating content, you'll see what this looks like. Basically, it'll show up for every new page and post that we create. If for whatever reason you missed a step or you want to go through the wizard again, you can do that in Dashboard, Setup Wizard, go through the wizard, or you can go into the general settings or any of these settings here actually to find out more and to enable any of those things that we missed. For example, when we were going through the wizard, there's a lot more actually features in here as well that you can go through and configure. Even leaving it as a beginner, leaving all of these as default is great. As you learn a little bit more about SEO and you want to implement some new features, there are other important and useful features in here that you can use in order to improve your SEO even more. For example, one of my main ones is using breadcrumbs, and you'll see how I use them in this website to describe to a user where they are in the journey, and also create a breadcrumb schema. It's another type of schema that describes, and it is good practice for Google to understand the structure of your websites. Remember, structure is very important, right? So when we talked about that in the previous module, I said that, you know, you want to set up a good structure for your website. That's one of the main things you want to plan out before you start any SEO project. And you can see here, I'm using a breadcrumb schema, which basically tells Google, you know, I'm this deep, I'm on this particular page. Sorry, I'm actually one beyond that page, and I can go back easily to navigate back to where I came from. Or what I can also do is, you know, generate that behind the scenes. This actually generates a schema that describes to Google, where we are in the hierarchy. So it's a great little kind of SEO add-on. I'll show you what schemas look like as well from a go to the validator.schema.org, and I'm going to enter in my website here, and I'll show you what these look like to the search engines. Basically, there's all this code, the back end of the homepage, and then all of these schemas are recognized by bots. Basically, one describes, this is generated by Rank Math, I believe, and it describes, that this is a local business, the name of the business, the contact information, and some useful things like that. So again, like my ratings. Actually, this one actually is from another plugin I'm using for creating reviews schemas for my website. So, this one was created by that particular plugin automatically. This one's handy because it actually pulls in my Google reviews into the website so that it describes to Google that these are my reviews for this particular business. So that one's created by another plugin. And then, of course, FAQ and article. FAQ I'll go through in a little bit more detail. It's another very useful schema that you can implement on your website that describes most common questions and answers that you're trying to answer, and that'll help you actually, land one of those rich results on Google, actually. So if you remember, we set up this article schema, which this is a web page article web page schema, and this one describes again, what this particular page is about, who owns it, who created it, and things like that. So it's very useful for Google to understand what this site is about. So I highly recommend implementing these. And then FAQ is, I will go through this in a little bit more detail, how to create these. It's good practice generally if you want to include some questions and answers. This describes, those questions that I want to target. So how much does it cost to hire a web designer, blah, 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 answer. So there's a few of them here. So it's great practice to implement these if you can. And another one is the breadcrumb schema that actually shows up here in this article. And it'll actually show, I'm actually on a homepage, so I don't have a breadcrumb schema on here, but if I was to run this for this particular page services, you would see the breadcrumb schema as well, for example, show up here or as a separate. We could try it as well. Let's see, just to show you what that looks like. We'll pick this page. We'll do another test here. And you'll see that all of my pages have a schema, at least one. This particular one is actually a service because it's my service page. And it has a video. And actually, for this particular one, not sure if oh, here's the breadcrumb as well, right? So this is the breadcrumb. It's actually showing up under this video object schema, which is fine. And it describes exactly what we were talking about, breadcrumb list, and all of the items, Calgary Web Design, our services, and then this particular page. So it's showing up in there. So you can see I use different schemas for different pages to describe what the page is about and to give Google a little bit more information about what my pages are about. So that's a very quick overview of the plugins, of the Rank Math plugin specifically for WordPress. I think it helps quite a bit. I do recommend implementing it if you're using WordPress specifically, and you'll see how we're going to use it in some of the future modules as well. All right, so for the key takeaways for this particular module, SEO plugins, I think using WordPress will help you tremendously if you're trying to focus on SEO. I'll include an article about why I think WordPress is the best for SEO if you're focusing on SEO, and why it's popular in the first place for developing websites generally, but especially if you're trying to focus on SEO. And using a WordPress SEO plugin can definitely help you automate some SEO tasks, as you'll see through this course. And I showed you how to learn and configure the Rank Math plugin. It's my favorite. I recommend it highly, especially if you want something for free to get started. It's a great one that offers a lot of functionality for free, actually, compared to some other SEO plugins that don't have nearly as much functionality. And yeah, the last thing is just kind of learn. I could do a whole course probably on just Rank Math. We'll go through some of the functionality as well in the rest of the course, but I urge you to learn Rank Math, just the basic settings, going through the wizard, configuring, and some of the features that it offers, and playing around with those features in order to get the most out of the plugin. Yeah, and that's it for this particular module. So we'll see you in the next one where we'll talk about keyword analysis. Thanks.